Her image doesn't align with our polished brand, Gregory Hayes announced, his voice cold and detached. Gasps rippled through the boardroom like a stone skipping across water. Maya Thompson froze mid-breath, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. This wasn't just about work. It was personal. Gregory continued, leaning back in his chair as if delivering bad news were an art form. We've received feedback from key clients suggesting they'd prefer someone more relatable. His words hung heavy in the air, sharp enough to cut glass. Relatable? Was he implying she wasn't human enough to connect with people who mattered? Maya's jaw clenched so hard it ached, but she refused to let him see her break. She scanned the room, catching glimpses of colleagues looking away, whispering behind their hands. Some wore masks of indifference. Others seemed almost relieved that the spotlight had shifted off them. You can't possibly believe this is fair. Elena Ramirez interjected suddenly, her tone sharp enough to slice tension. Her dark eyes locked onto Gregory, unyielding. Gregory faltered for a moment, his polished demeanor cracking ever so slightly. But before he could respond, Maya felt something stir within her, a quiet fury beginning to burn brighter than any humiliation he could throw at her. As the murmurs filled the room, Maya retreated inward, her mind racing faster than her heart. How dare he dismiss years of relentless effort in a single sentence? She thought of the countless late nights spent perfecting campaigns, the pitches where her ideas transformed stagnant brands into industry leaders. It wasn't luck or favoritism. It was grit, skill, and an unshakable belief in herself. She remembered starting as an intern, fresh out of college, armed only with determination and notebooks full of strategies no one else believed in. Bakay. Then every meeting felt like walking into battle, proving over and over again that her voice deserved to be heard despite the skepticism etched on faces whenever she spoke. And now this, a slap in the face disguised as professionalism. They weren't rejecting her qualifications, they were rejecting her. The color of her skin, the texture of her hair, the way she carried herself with pride instead of shrinking away. The injustice clawed at her chest, making it hard to breathe. Yet beneath the anger simmered something deeper. Resolve. If they wanted a fight, they'd get one, but not without exposing truths they'd rather keep buried. Elena's challenge still echoed in her ears, fueling her courage. As the meeting dragged on, Maya began piecing together fragments of Gregory's behavior, searching for cracks in his carefully constructed facade. Relatable? Elena repeated, her voice rising above the low hum of whispers. That's rich coming from you, Gregory. Care to explain what exactly makes Maya less relatable than anyone else in this room? Gregory shifted uncomfortably, his usual composure slipping under Elena's piercing gaze. It's not about relatability alone, he stammered. It's about perception. What clients expect when they think of leadership. Oh, spare us the corporate jargon, Elena shot back, slamming her palm against the table. You mean what white clients expect. Let's call it what it is. Colorism wrapped up in pretty packaging. Murmurs turned into shocked silence, as Elena laid bare the ugly truth. Around the room, some nodded subtly while others squirmed in their seats, unwilling to confront the elephant looming larger by the second. Maya watched Gregory closely, noting how his confident posture wilted under scrutiny. For all his bravado, there was fear lurking beneath, fear of being exposed, perhaps even fear of losing control. You built your career on exploiting systems designed to exclude people like me, Elena pressed, her words slicing through the tension. But times are changing, Gregory, and you're running out of excuses. Maya's pulse quickened as Elena's words ignited a spark of hope. Maybe she wasn't alone in this fight after all. But even as allies emerged, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Gregory was hiding something far bigger than anyone realized. As Gregory fumbled for a response, Maya noticed it. A faint twitch in his left eye, barely perceptible but impossible to ignore once spotted. It wasn't nerves. It was guilt. Years of observing body language taught her how to read between the lines, and right now, Gregory's body screamed louder than his words. He wasn't just defending a decision, he was protecting himself. Her mind raced with possibilities. What did he have to lose? Was it financial misconduct or something darker, something tied to the very fabric of the company's culture? She leaned forward slightly, studying him with renewed intensity. "Why does this feel so personal to you?" she asked quietly, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. Gregory hesitated, caught off guard by her directness. "I don't know what you're insinuating," he replied, though his tone betrayed uncertainty. Maya didn't push further, not yet. Instead, she filed away the observation, letting it simmer alongside everything else she'd uncovered during this nightmare of a meeting. Whatever secret Gregory guarded, it would surface eventually, and when it did, she'd be ready. By the time the meeting adjourned, Maya's notebook was brimming with scribbled notes and unanswered questions. Each page bore witness to her growing determination, a testament to the fact that she wouldn't walk away quietly. Clutching the notebook tightly, she replayed the day's events in her mind. From Gregory's coded remarks to Elena's bold intervention, every moment underscored the systemic rot eating away at the foundation of the company. But this wasn't just about her career anymore. It was about justice. For herself, for Elena, for everyone who'd been told they weren't good enough because of the color of their skin. As she stepped into the elevator, Maya allowed herself a brief moment of vulnerability. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished metal doors, steady and resolute. "This isn't over," she whispered to herself, her voice firm despite the weight pressing down on her shoulders. She exited the building, the city skyline stretching endlessly before her. Somewhere out there lay the answers she needed, the evidence that would expose the truth and hold those in power accountable. And she intended to find them. All of them. Maya sat at the lunch table, her salad untouched, as her colleagues laughed over a story about last weekend's golf outing. She tried to focus on their words, but something pricked at her skin. A subtle shift in tone when they turned to her lighter-skinned coworker, Lisa. "You're so articulate," one of them said, nodding approvingly. "Honestly, you don't even sound black." Lisa smiled politely, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to challenge the comment. Maya felt her stomach churn. These weren't isolated incidents. They were constant reminders that she didn't fit some unspoken mold. Earlier, that week, someone had leaned across her desk and whispered, "Your presence can be pretty intimidating sometimes. Maybe soften up a bit." Another muttered under their breath during a meeting, "Why does she have to make everything political?" Each remark chipped away at her confidence like waves eroding a cliff. But what hurt most was how casually these comments came, delivered, with smiles or shrugged shoulders, as if they carried no weight. As Maya left the restaurant that day, anger simmered beneath her calm exterior. She clenched her fists inside her coat pockets, vowing silently not to let their ignorance define her worth. Yet even as she resolved to rise above it, a seed of doubt lingered. Was this battle hers alone? Or was there more to uncover behind the systemic biases poisoning the workplace? Late that night, Maya sat cross-legged on her living room floor, her laptop glowing softly in the dim light. Her inbox was open, filled with forwarded emails she'd saved over the years, messages hinting at favoritism, exclusion, and coded language. Tonight, though, she wasn't just looking for patterns, she was searching for proof. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before clicking into an archived thread between Gregory and a senior client. The subject line read, "Feedback on leadership. Candidates. We need someone clients feel comfortable with," Gregory wrote. "Relatability matters. Lighter tones resonate better." Maya's breath hitched. There it was, the evidence she needed. It wasn't vague feedback or subjective opinions anymore. This was deliberate manipulation, a calculated effort to exclude people who didn't meet arbitrary standards rooted in bias. She scrolled through other emails, each one reinforcing the same narrative. Clients hadn't rejected her because of performance, they rejected her because of perception. And Gregory had twisted those perceptions to justify his decisions. Fury bubbled within her as she realized this wasn't personal. It was systemic. He wasn't targeting her specifically. He was perpetuating a culture where success depended on appearance rather than ability. But knowing wasn't enough. She needed allies, resources, and a plan. Because exposing this truth wouldn't be easy, not when power protected itself so fiercely. The next morning, Maya found herself digging deeper, not just into Gregory's actions, but into his past. A quick search led her to old news articles from decades ago, detailing a discrimination lawsuit filed against the company early in Gregory's career. Back then, he'd been a mid-level manager accused of sidelining minority employees while promoting less qualified white candidates. Instead of fighting the system, Gregory settled out of court and vowed to do better. Yet here he was now, wielding the very tools of oppression he once claimed to oppose. Maya couldn't help but wonder, when did he stop seeing himself as a victim and start becoming the perpetrator? Did he truly believe he had no choice, or did he simply decide climbing the ladder was worth any cost? Whispers among veteran employees confirmed her suspicions. Gregory learned early on that playing along gets you farther than pushing back, one colleague confided during a rare moment of candor. The revelation left Maya reeling. How could someone so aware of injustice become its greatest enforcer? And what did that say about the systems designed to keep people like her trapped beneath glass ceilings? That evening, Maya met Elena in a dimly lit parking garage after work. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain. They stood near. Elena's car, voices low but urgent. "I've seen it happen before," Elena admitted, leaning against the hood. "When I first started, I was told my accent made me hard to understand. Took me 2 years longer than anyone else to get promoted." Maya nodded, recognizing the pain in Elena's voice. "It's like they expect us to prove ourselves, twice as hard, and still find ways to say we're not enough." Elena handed her a folder stuffed with documents. "I pulled reports from HR showing disparities in promotions and raises across departments. If we combine your findings with mine..." She trailed off, letting the implication hang heavy between them. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt a flicker of hope. Together, they began outlining a strategy, documenting cases, gathering testimonies, and building a case strong enough to dismantle the facade Gregory had spent years constructing. Their alliance solidified as they parted ways, both women acutely aware of the risks ahead. But neither was willing to back down, not when justice demanded action. Days later, Maya received a frantic call from Elena. "Someone leaked our files," she said, panic edging her tone. "Gregory knows we're onto him." Maya's heart sank. Who could have betrayed them? Suspicion gnawed at her until she confronted Jasmine outside the office cafeteria. "Why?" Maya demanded, her voice trembling. "How could you do this?" Jasmine hesitated, tears welling in her eyes. "I thought I was protecting you. You're throwing everything away, your career, your reputation, for something that might not even work." "It's not about protecting me," Maya shot back, her anger boiling over. "It's about standing up for what's right. What gives you the right to decide what's best for me?" Jasmine looked away, guilt etched across her face. "I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing." Betrayal cut deeper than any insult ever could. As Maya walked away, she realized trust was a fragile thing. One misstep and it shattered beyond repair. The boardroom buzzed with anticipation as Maya prepared to present her latest campaign. Sweat trickled down her spine despite the chill in the air. She glanced at Gregory, his smug expression sending a fresh wave of anxiety coursing through her veins. Her voice faltered mid-sentence, words tangling together like knots. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the remote, struggling to advance the slides. Panic clawed at her chest, making it hard to breathe. Gregory seized the moment, interjecting smoothly. "Perhaps Maya needs more time to refine her ideas. Clearly, this level of stress is affecting her ability to perform." Humiliation burned hotter than fury as murmurs rippled through the room. For a moment, Maya wondered if he was right. If she really wasn't cut out for this fight. But even as doubt clouded her mind, a stubborn spark refused to die. She wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Later that evening, Maya retreated to her office, seeking refuge in solitude. On her desk lay an old photo of herself as a child, holding a trophy from a science fair. Her parents stood beside her, beaming with pride. Memories flooded back, her father working double shifts to afford her school supplies, her mother staying up late to help her practice presentations. They'd sacrificed so much to give her opportunities they never had. And here she was now, facing battles they'd warned her about but hoped she'd never endure. Tears blurred her vision as she traced the edges of the photograph. She remembered why she'd started this fight, not just for herself but for everyone who'd come before her and everyone who would follow. Failure wasn't an option. Not now. Not ever. With renewed determination, Maya tucked the photo into her bag and returned to her notes, ready to plan her next move. Maya stood at the podium, her hands trembling as she gripped the microphone. The room was silent except for the faint hum of anticipation rippling through the crowd. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest, and pressed play on the audio recorder. "We need someone more relatable." Gregory's voice echoed coldly through the speakers. "Clients prefer lighter tones." A collective gasp swept across the room. Heads turned toward Gregory, seated stiffly at the front row, his face pale and jaw clenched. Murmurs erupted, some incredulous, others furious, as the weight of his words sank in. "This is proof," Maya said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "Proof that my promotion wasn't denied because of performance or competence. It was denied because of bias. Because I didn't fit some arbitrary mold of what leadership should look like." Gregory shot to his feet, pointing an accusatory finger at her. "This is absurd. You're fabricating lies out of bitterness because you couldn't handle rejection." His tone dripped with disdain, but his eyes betrayed panic. The audience buzzed louder now, torn between disbelief and anger. Maya felt the pressure mounting, her resolve wavering under Gregory's verbal assault. But before she could respond, another voice cut through the chaos, a voice that would change everything. Elena stormed onto the stage, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Without hesitation, she grabbed the microphone from Maya and faced the crowd, her dark eyes blazing with fury. "You think this is about one person?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "This isn't just about Maya, it's about all of us. Every single one of us has been told we're not good enough because of the color of our skin, our accent, or how we wear our hair." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then, softer but no less powerful, she continued. "When I started here, they told me my Spanish accent made me sound unprofessional. When Lisa joined, they said she was too quiet to lead, even though she had ideas sharper than anyone else's. And Maya? They called her intimidating when all she did was speak her truth." One by one, employees began standing up. First a young black intern clutching a notebook, then a South Asian manager wiping tears from his eyes. Each shared their own story of discrimination, their voices rising in unison until the room became a tidal wave of emotion. Gregory sat frozen, his defenses crumbling under the sheer force of collective outrage. For the first time, he looked small, smaller than Maya had ever seen him. But even as the momentum shifted, Maya knew they needed more. One final blow to seal his fate. Just as the energy in the room reached its peak, the doors swung open. Jasmine stepped inside, her face pale and her hands gripping a USB drive tightly. She walked slowly to the stage, her steps hesitant, but determined. "Maya," she began, her voice trembling. "I owe you an apology." The room fell silent again, all eyes turning to Jasmine. Maya stared at her former friend, unsure whether to feel anger or pity. "I leaked your files to Gregory," Jasmine admitted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought I was protecting you, from ruining your career, from making enemies, but I see now that I betrayed you instead." She held out the USB drive, her hand shaking. "These are documents I copied secretly after leaking yours. Messages, emails, recordings, everything you'll need to expose the full extent of his corruption." As Maya accepted the drive, the crowd erupted into gasps and cheers. Cornered beyond denial, Gregory slumped back into his seat, his polished facade crumbling completely. For the first time, Maya allowed herself a flicker of hope. With Jasmine's redemption and the evidence in hand, victory felt within reach. But the fight wasn't over yet. Desperation clawed at Gregory as he rose to his feet once more, sweat glistening on his forehead. He raised his hands in surrender, attempting to salvage what little dignity he had left. "Listen to me," he pleaded, his voice cracking under the weight of his guilt. "Yes, I made mistakes, but I'm not the problem here. It's the system. Society demands these standards, not me." His words were met with immediate backlash. Shouts of "liar" and "take responsibility" filled the air, drowning out his feeble attempts to deflect blame. "You're hiding behind excuses," Maya snapped, stepping forward. "You didn't just follow orders, you built this system, you enforced it, and now you're trying to act like you're innocent?" The crowd roared in agreement, their collective rage palpable. Gregory's hypocrisy lay exposed for everyone to see, leaving him utterly powerless. Yet even as the tide turned decisively against him, Maya knew there was still work to be done. Holding individuals accountable was only the beginning. The real challenge lay in dismantling the structures that enabled such injustice in the first place. Taking the microphone once more, Maya stepped to the center of the stage, her presence commanding silence. Her voice rang out clear and strong, each word carrying the weight of years of struggle and resilience. "Success shouldn't depend on your skin tone," she declared, her gaze sweeping across the audience. "But until we dismantle these systems, until we hold ourselves accountable for perpetuating them, nothing will truly change." Her words struck a chord, resonating deeply with everyone in the room. Some nodded fervently, others wiped away tears, moved by the gravity of her message. "We must stand together," Maya continued, her tone unwavering. "Not just today, not just in this moment, but every day moving forward. We must demand better, not just for ourselves, but for those who will come after us." As she finished speaking, the room erupted into applause. People rose to their feet, clapping and cheering, their faces alight with hope and determination. But Maya knew this was merely the start. True change requires action, persistence, and unity. And as she stepped off the stage, she vowed to keep fighting for justice, for equality, and for a future where success belonged to everyone, regardless of the color of their skin. Gregory's resignation came swiftly after the shareholders' meeting, his reputation in tatters. The press release was terse but telling. After careful consideration, Gregory Hayes has stepped down as CEO to focus on personal matters. Behind closed doors, the company scrambled to contain the fallout, launching a formal investigation into systemic discrimination within its ranks. Maya watched the news unfold from her desk, a mix of vindication and exhaustion washing over her. While Gregory's departure marked a victory, it wasn't enough. She knew the rot ran deeper than one man. Still, there were immediate wins. Within days, Maya was reinstated as Senior Marketing Director, her promotion announced with fanfare, designed to appease public scrutiny. But for Maya, this wasn't about titles or accolades. It was about justice, and ensuring that no one else would have to endure what she had. As she accepted congratulations from colleagues who once doubted her, she made a silent promise. This fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Late one evening, Maya sat alone in her new office, the weight of recent events pressing heavily on her shoulders. She stared at the photo of her younger self still tucked into the corner of her desk, a reminder of how far she'd come and how much farther she needed to go. Her mind wandered back to the countless battles she'd fought along the way, the microaggressions dismissed as jokes, the promotions denied without explanation, the moments when she questioned whether speaking up was worth it. Each memory stung, but they also fueled her resolve. "I didn't just do this for me," she whispered aloud, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "I did it for everyone who's been told they don't belong." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away. This wasn't a time for sadness, it was a time for action. She picked up her notebook, flipping through pages filled with plans, strategies, and dreams for the future. True change wouldn't happen overnight, but every step forward mattered. Weeks later, Maya found herself standing before a room full of young professionals of color, their eager faces reflecting both hope and uncertainty. She held up her hands. To quiet the murmurs, her smile warm yet resolute. "When I started here," she began, pacing slowly across the front of the room, "I was told I didn't fit the mold, that my ideas were too bold, my presence too intimidating, my voice too loud. But here's the thing. You don't have to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You deserve to take up space, to be heard." She paused, letting her words sink in. Around the room, heads nodded in agreement, some scribbling notes while others simply listened intently. Afterward, a young intern approached her, clutching a resume nervously. "Thank you," she said softly, "for showing us that we can win, even when the odds are stacked against us." Maya placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're not done winning yet," she replied. "Not until everyone gets a fair shot." One evening, as Maya reviewed documents related to the ongoing investigation, Elena stopped by her office, closing the door behind her. "There's something you should know," she said quietly, handing over a folder marked "Confidential." Inside were emails revealing that Gregory's downfall hadn't been solely due to Maya's efforts, or even Jasmine's redemption. An anonymous whistleblower within the board had been feeding information to HR for months, carefully orchestrating the exposure of discriminatory practices. Maya leaned back in her chair, stunned. "Who is it?" she asked, though she suspected Elena wouldn't or couldn't answer. "All I know is that they wanted to remain hidden," Elena replied. "But whoever it is, they played a crucial role in taking him down." The revelation added another layer of complexity to the story, underscoring the importance of unseen allies in the fight for justice. Maya resolved to honor their bravery by continuing the work they'd all started together. At a community event weeks later, Maya stood before a diverse crowd, her voice ringing out with conviction. "Success shouldn't depend on your skin tone," she declared, repeating the mantra that had carried her through the darkest moments of her journey. "But until we dismantle these systems, until we hold ourselves accountable for perpetuating them, nothing will truly change." Her words resonated deeply, drawing cheers and applause from the audience. People rose to their feet, inspired by her courage and determination. As she stepped off the stage, a young girl approached her holding out a sketch pad. On the cover was a drawing of Maya, captioned "My Hero." Maya knelt down to meet the child's gaze, her heart swelling with emotion. "You don't need heroes," she said gently. "What you need is to believe in yourself and to never stop fighting for what's right." With that, she walked away, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The road to equality was long and fraught with obstacles, but Maya knew she wasn't walking it alone. Together, they would build a better future, one step at a time. As Maya stepped off the stage, she turned back to the crowd, her voice steady yet passionate. "This fight doesn't end here," she said. "Change starts with us, with every person willing to speak up and demand better." If this story moved you, if you believe in justice and equality, then help me spread the word. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so we can keep having these conversations. Together, we can turn outrage into action. The camera lingered on her determined face as she walked away, leaving viewers inspired to join the movement.